If you don't have the skill to do it, don't do it. Because like, especially if you're getting paid, there's that. So it was like, to me at least, I was like, I need to learn how to communicate what I can and can't do and like what I'm good at. Like there's things that I'm really good at, so like let me do this. I don't really care about camera gear. Like I feel like I'm good at like capturing an event and like a moment, and I'm good at that, but it's not what I'm passionate about, and I'm not passionate as the cameras get bigger and heavier. Count me out. Like I'm not interested. Editing, I'm done. I just don't have any interest in that anymore. All I want to do is like run the show, because I feel like I'm really good at that. And so now I'm like, I found the things and I communicated the things that like I liked. And when you like things, you're better at them.
To kick things off today with episode 7 of the Sports Creative Showcase, back from a slight hiatus, I have a very special guest here coming all the way from Denver, Colorado. Avalon, I can't pronounce your last name because I don't know how to, and this is a common theme. I like asking people how to pronounce their last names.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
It's Koenig.
Koenig. Okay, so I have Avalon Koenig here from Fresh Tape Media, Denver's very own. Super happy to have you here to talk to us. You are a senior producer at Fresh Tape Media. You were formerly a content creator, content producer for San Diego's athletic department. You have been pretty much all over the map in the last 2 years, as far as I can tell from your Instagram and just by getting to know you. Welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you having here. Give us a little bit of an introduction. Give us an idea of who you are, what you've been up to.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. Do you want my like whole thing or a little snippet?
Give me like the spark notes, like the Coles notes, like really quick, like who you are, what you're doing, and what people can find you.
I actually just got promoted to head of production at Fresh Tape.
Okay, so, wow, look at you. Okay.
Yes, so now I'm the head of production at Fresh Tape, and but I manage the production team, and I'm still producing, and so we do everything from brainstorm to creative ideas, and then just making it happen, hiring the contractors, going to the shoot. I oftentimes direct. That's like a lot of my role on set, and making sure that everything is as it should be and everyone knows what they're doing. And then we do, post-production supervision and all that stuff all the way to the final product. So out here in Denver, and happy to be here.
So first of all, congratulations on the promotion. I didn't even know that before starting.
It literally happened. It's my 4-year anniversary this past weekend. So it's the yearly upgrade. So you're the first to know, actually.
Wow. So this might be the coming out. We got the breaking the scoop here that you got promoted. No, that's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Obviously, we've met a few times now. For context, I like to give context as to where I meet all these people. You and I met through me working with the NHL and you working with us last year at the Stanley Cup Final, and then we just worked again together during the All-Star Weekend. You've had a really unique journey, in my opinion, because even though you and I have the similar start of working with an athletic department in the university world, you've kind of built your career in working in sports, but not directly with a team or like a league or any kind of organization affiliated directly to a sports league. And I think that's really interesting, because usually when people ask me what are the jobs available, people kind of automatically assume, you have to work with like the Colorado Avalanche or directly with the NHL. But you've kind of built this path for yourself in terms of like creating your own opportunities and building upon other things you've done in the past. Give me an idea of what how long have you been doing this for, and what have the last couple of years? You've been a Fresh Tape for 4 years. What has your journey kind of taught you up until this point before we get into it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I love most about Fresh Tape is that we are an agency that works for all the leagues and sports teams that I probably would want to be a part of. So like when I was looking for a new job, originally I was at San Diego. Working for a team or a university, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's all these cool teams and leagues, and they look so cool, and I want to work with the athletes, but like I don't really want to live that lifestyle, which we all know is like a grind. I was grinding at San Diego, and it was I was there for like 2 years, and I was kind of like, I don't think this is sustainable. Like I want a life. I'm only like 23, like I don't want to be working 90 hours a week, and the kind of teams and leagues and those routes, I saw that trajectory as you work weekends, you work nights, and that's just not what I was looking for. And Fresh Tape, came along. I followed them on Twitter, and they're just incredible because over the past 4 years, we've obviously grown a ton. So it's been fun to grow, with Fresh Tape. But our clients are those teams and leagues, and then other people too that I wouldn't have even thought of. Like Twitter, different entertainment companies and stuff too that I get to. We basically do what I worked with you, which you're working for the league, and I'm working for Fresh Tape, but we get to work for the league too, but only 5 times a year. And then the other thing I love about it is, different seasons, right? So we work the Stanley Cup, but we also work NBA All-Star. So you get to dip your toe in all different kinds of places, which means you get to meet all these people, which is one of my favorite things, is meeting and knowing people who are in every single, different aspect of the sports world. But it also keeps you on your toes. I also thought that, I'm not a big sports fan. So picking a team or a sport wasn't really my vibe, because I was I don't love any single one. So in this role, I get to work for all of them in some respect. There's baseball, there's hockey, there's football, there's basketball, there's, women's basketball. It's been, I love it. And I always recommend it to people when they're talking about if they're in college and they're looking, the next step often they think is to work for a team or league. But I always encourage them to, if you can find a company, obviously Fresh Tape is a little unique in the kinds of clients we have, but there's tons of companies that work doing media days or, commercials for sports teams. And I always think that that's the best way to be a part of it, because you get to be a part of so many different kinds of things. And you get to have a life too. So it's definitely taught me a lot too, because every sport is different, every league is different, every team is different. But you get to kind of grow, and kind of in some ways, sky is the limit. There's obviously budget constraints and stuff, but when you're on the team side or you're on the league side, you often are constrained with money or or access, right? You only get some access for some places, and for us, when we do an all-star, it's all access, because that's the point of it, is that we're working with those people. And budgets again are there's always budget constraints, but you have more to work with when they're doing when they're down
you kind of get to play by your own rules in a way,
totally.
Because you not only are you able to constrain to their budget, but you have your own limitations and freedoms to work with. So you kind of do get that freedom of work and ability to do different things.
Yes. So it's just been incredible to be able to, I feel like I've learned so much in so little time, just by being everywhere all the time, all at once. Not to, go Oscars, but yeah.
I love the whole, kind of getting to dip your toes into everything. And I mean, that's kind of, and you'll probably relate when you work in the college athletic scene, which we'll get to, because I want to get into your story there. You kind of get to work with all the sports, which is fun, but you kind of took that concept and applied it to the real world. So it's really cool to hear, is as someone who's I'm a hockey fan, and I work in the NHL, but I find it so cool that you get the opportunity to do things with all the leagues and all these individuals at times. And I've been a big fan of what Fresh Shape has always done. And then when I didn't know at first that you were part of them. So when I ended up realizing that before I met you, that you were with them, it was just made sense for me to see someone with your skill set and with your ability to tell a story to blend into a brand and a company like that that's so good at doing that already. It makes perfect sense. And I love the fact that you kind of get to have all these experiences. And I think meeting people is a really underrated part of what we do. Because people are always you're working all the time, and I'm but my favorite part about it is getting to go to events and meet other like-minded people who do the same thing, right? So, and I think that's a really underappreciated part of working in the sports creative world, is that you just meet people who love what you do, and that's very rare to find these days at times. You've had we talked about it before the call, and obviously I know when you were at All-Star in Florida and we met, you were going off very quickly soon to the NBA All-Star. You've had a pretty crazy start to 2023. Do you want to give us some background as to what you've been doing lately?
The start of 2023 was crazy. I came back, and I think I had a 5 weekend, long weekend. We leave on Thursday, come back Sunday or Monday. But I did that back to back for 5 weeks straight, which is a lot, when you're traveling, especially depending on where you're going, and you come back and you have 2 nights in your bed, and then you leave, it drains, yeah. I did let's see, the first couple things we did, I went to LA 2 weekends in a row, one with NFLPA. They were doing their leadership summit, so we built a set and kind of facilitated a game for their players, and then we filmed it and turned it around for a little social content. And then we did Team USA, Black Excellence, which is up right now with Ari, and that was incredible. Also, it was kind of like a round table. I don't know if you saw Women of the League, but it was kind of a little bit of that on a smaller scale. So, 4 women talking about their experience in gymnastics, their Black experience in gymnastics. And then the next weekend I was doing, I think that was NHL, perhaps, NHL All-Star in Miami.
Like for first weekend of February though.
Yes.
Yeah, in Fort Lauderdale.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. And that one was just, these other ones we do, sometimes we do set builds and content production. That's mostly what we do, is we'll provide the staff as well. But then sometimes, like at NHL, you did the content production and we did the set, this is always fun because it's like, we facilitate kind of this look and feel, and then you kind of execute this sick glam bot thing, which was like so cool to see.
A lot of fun, yeah.
But yeah, that one I went solo to. And then the next weekend was PBR. We're doing this Cowgirl Way, which actually is coming out pretty soon, maybe next week, I think. Basically, we've interviewed 6 cowgirls who are involved in the PBR in some way, stock contractors, like bull riders, the first bull rider, and we're telling their stories over like kind of a 5-minute, mini short form, long form social cut. And so we were in Tulsa filming at a rodeo, interviewing these women, and then the next weekend was NBA All-Star in Salt Lake City. Where we did, we do their portrait station, but we also did an arrivals station on the last night for the guys, like all their fits and stuff. They come in, and we did some stuff for Turner, and yeah, it was a lot. And then I got to chill for a while, but yeah, it was a sprint for sure, but super fun. I mean, everything was like super fun and exciting, but it was definitely a sprint.
Yeah, I think there's so many different things I want to go off of from that one bit there, like the sprint you mentioned and also like the set design, but I'll go to what we were just talking about here. And I think it's a really, like, I kind of had not every single weekend, but like for myself, like I went from like Winter Classic to All-Star like 2 weeks later, and then a week and a half later I'm in Carolina for Stadium Series, and then I'm traveling again for another work. So it's like, I love the fact that even though you said, oh, the last 5 weeks I haven't been at home, but you're still so happy about it. Show me like how much you love it and how much you like really are passionate about it. And I had a previous guest on this podcast, and I always refer to this. Like he said, like if you want to work in this industry and like the sports creative industry in general, like you have to like fucking love what you do. And I can tell that you have so much like passion for it. But like, give me a little glimpse here. Like I think people often think that the reality of working in sports, and at times, like, yeah, you get to travel, you get to go all these cool places, you meet all these cool people, but like then there's the part that people don't see, which is like the long hours and the late nights and not getting to sleep in your bed or getting to see your family, your friends. Can you give me a little bit of insight on how you deal with like the expectation versus the reality of our career and what you do?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I said I was looking at that 5 weeks, and I was like, when I get like, if I'm at all stressed or lack of sleep, I get sick. Like I get sick. So I was like looking at that, and I was like, I can't get sick. So I was trying everything not to get sick. Like I didn't do anything like outside of those times. And of course, the 4th weekend right before All-Star, I get sick, and I was on set. I think they were like 17-hour days for those PBR where we were doing interviews all day. It was freezing. And I think the second day I had a fever the whole day. Like it was a 17 hours. I was conducting the interviews. Like I had to be really like, you have to be like charismatic and on,
present,
to get the good interview. And so I had to like be really on, and I was sick. Like I was like, I for sure am like feverish right now. And like that's part of it, but I had to do it. It's like you just have to do it. And so that's part of it, and it sucked. I mean, and I came back and I had the biggest weekend of those 5 weeks, was All-Star for me, because I was supervising 3 sets and like tons of creators, and it's just high stakes. It's big.
A lot on the line, and there's pressure. Yeah.
So I knew, like, going into that, I was like, I'm sick. I'm gonna be going, and I knew I'd be better. Like I knew that the worst was that weekend, which was just horrible to get through. But I kind of had to like just put my head down and be like, okay, these next 2 days, like I took like Monday off, of work to like chill. And then the next day I was like, okay, just do what you gotta do what you gotta do. And then again, the next week was like a 90-hour week, and I was like coming off of being sick. So it's not fun all the time, and it's stressful. Like I think people say, and I actually joke with Jared, our CEO, about this, is like I go to NBA All-Star, right? Which is like a lot of people like, I understand it's like this huge event that people would dream to be at. And while it is awesome, it's like one of my most stressful weekends of the entire year. And so like people are going out, they're texting me, they're like, oh, come out, let's get drinks. And I'm like, I can't even like breathe until Sunday, until Monday morning, or like Sunday at like midnight. Like that's when I can breathe, because I'm just like, so I have to be on, like,
yeah,
I mean, I remember even last year All-Star, like they went out and like I had to move the set and like Sunday morning, and people went out on Saturday, and like one of the people we were working with like came and was like super hungover, and it was like fine because like they were enjoying themselves, but I was like, I have to be like in charge, and like I have to not only be in charge but make sure like nothing happens, and if something happens I have to like it's just like so much that like I can't enjoy the events the way I think some people enjoy the events who have different responsibilities or like different things. So like and I feel that way at almost everything that I'm doing. So while it is fun, it's like, if you went to the Super Bowl, right? Like, it's not like I'm going to the Super Bowl. It's like, no, I'm going to work at the Super Bowl.
You're working. This is your 9 to 5. This is your career.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes like worse than going, right? It's like, well, I can be there and I get to see all this cool stuff, but I can't really have fun.
It's two different things.
Yeah. You can't, there's a flip, it's like, I've worked weddings before, and it's kind of like, your friend is like, oh, but you can drink and like have fun too. I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah,
like,
that's my favorite. When someone's like, shoot my wedding, you can still have fun. I'm like, no, I can't, because I'm trying to get you in your last day, in like your first dance, and I can't be hammered when I do that.
Totally. I'm like, what do you think I'm doing here? I have to work, So that's very much how it is with these events too. So like while they are glamorous and like, God forbid everything goes well, but things also don't sometimes. Like things have gone horribly wrong on set that you have to, it's either on you or you have to figure out how to fix, or, there's just so much stuff that you have to think about that like I don't think people understand. When they see the final product, they're like, oh my God, that looks so great. I'm like, yeah, but it was like, the behind the scenes and the long hours, and just the like.
There was like 5 panic attacks behind this one shot, like, because this light stopped working and our camera broke.
Totally. Like 7 terror nightmares that I didn't sleep for 2 weeks, just
my
like.
My hair's turning gray. I think the thing is, it's like, people, and I actually just shot a video and I talked about this. It's like people only see the highlight reel on Instagram, like or on TikTok, or you only see, like, we posted that, like I posted those videos of like the glam bot we did, and it looked amazing and we were so happy with it. But like what people don't see is the fact that like it was like scalding hot.
So hot.
I was sweating, like, like I felt like I jumped in a pool. Like one of our Joe, my coworker, got like a sunburn. Like we were out there for hours. Like that's what people don't realize. They just see the finished product and they're like, oh my God, your career's so cool. I'm like, yeah, but I risked burning my skin off for it. So it's like people don't see that. So on that side of things, and I think this is a big thing I like to like make a point of when I create my content and to give people advice. How do you get away from it all? How do you leave your career at the door? Because I know that's so hard for everyone to do. It's hard for me to do. How do you like, after that 5-week long trip, how do you decompress? What's your advice to people who need a way to disconnect from what they do?
Well, let me tell you, you are asking the right person. I am the like #1 proponent of work-life balance. Like there are weeks, of course, that are going to be 90 hours, 60 hours. Maybe they're back to back, right? I was looking at my like hours and I was like, wow, that was a crazy 3 weeks, whatever. But one thing, and this is the other thing I love about Fresh Tape, is we get flex days. So like if we work a weekend, we get 2 days to take off somewhere. So I stocked those up because I didn't really have time to take them off. And so I had like 5-10 days to like take off that weren't even included in PTO that I could take off so that you feel balanced. But like if it's a normal week, like this is, I think the thing that is super important is like routine, right? And then prep. So like before that 5 weeks and like maybe after whatever, like I'm working 40 hours, period. Like I'm not gonna work an hour over 40 hours. Like that is my salary. That is what I have been, paid to do. And so I clock in at 9 and I leave at 5. Like, and I get my shit done. Obviously you have to get it done. But I figure out how to get it done between 9 and 5, because if I am slow or not efficient or something, and so then the whole year I'm working kind of like 8 to 7 and 9 to 6 and that kind of thing, then those 5 weeks are impossible, because then you're just like, I can't I'm already drained. I'm already like I don't feel like I have the things that I know I need, to like be able to do that. So before that 5 week comes, I'm ready to go. Cause I'm like, yeah, I'm fresh. I like, I work out in the morning. I do this and this. So both, it's really important to take that time off when you can. Like if they're spread out and I have a weekend, I'm going to take the Monday and Tuesday off, or like Tuesday and Wednesday off. So I make sure I have basically that perfect 5 day a week. Like I don't work 7 days a week ever. I make sure I have that kind of 5 days somewhere. It might not look the same every week, but I make sure I take it. And on the days I might not have anything planned, I just sit in my house and I sit with my cat and I just chill. But I do think routine is super, super important. Like, so that when you do come back from that, you get right back into the things that you usually do. So you're not chaotic. Like, I feel like chaos can creep up on you really, really easily. And if you're not able to like kind of switch back into that, like, okay, we're back. We're like going to Trader Joe's. We're going to the gym. We're like going to bed at 9:30. We're doing whatever we normally do. I'm in my house, like I'm in my bed. Like I'm doing these things. Especially coming off those, like I'm not going out. Like I'm just gonna get back into my rhythm until I feel like almost bored. And then I can kind of start like venturing out. But it's like, that's how you kind of contain, I think, the chaos. Otherwise, everything will just unravel, in my opinion, at least. So it's just making sure that you have like structure in your life so that you're able to like, when I see that 5 week stint, I'm not freaked out because I'm like, I also know that when I'm on the road, I go to the gym and I do I still do try to do as much of my routine when I'm on the road too as when I'm at home.
To keep some of that normalcy, because everything gets thrown off when you're traveling, of course.
Because if you just go, like then these 17 hours, you're just gonna be like, it's not sustainable. Also, even if it's only a couple weeks, even if it's one weekend, you're gonna get thrown off your game, and it'll be harder to come back in if you don't have anything to come back to, and if you're not doing the things that you usually do while you're gone, if you can, So those are like the 3 ways, I guess, that I kind of keep my rhythm churning,
I love that.
Going forward.
Yeah.
But I think it's super important. And it also keeps you from making mistakes, like when you're actually at work.
Because you're not overtired or like, you're like on the ball, sharp, ready to go. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I love that. I think that's so different from and I think obviously being at a place like Fresh Shape helps. It's a smaller company. You guys all know each other. It's like kind of a little family from when I visited. I could tell that. Yes. It kind of gets away from like that toxic culture I think some places in the, SM sports community have of like, grinding till you can't grind and
you're not working till 2 a.m. Who are you?
Not sleep. Like if you're not editing to 3, like what the fuck are you? Like that's toxic. And like at the start of your career, you kind of have to go through that.
Totally agree.
And that's just kind of the reality of things. But I think at this point, like when you get into your career as an adult and you get away from like the internships and the early level kind of jobs, you kind of, and like same with me at the NHL, I think one of the best things we have going, like I love the work culture. I also get similar like time off, and like I just took the first 3-day weekend I've taken off in however long I can remember, like 2 weeks ago, and it did wonders for like my mental health. Like I got to relax, I got to see my friends, I didn't think about work all weekend. Like and when I got back on Monday, I was just like, oh my god, like I'm like ready to go. Like so I think it's really important, and I love the kind of the 3 stages you mentioned of that work-life balance, because also like another thing is like the routine. Once you stop going to the gym, like it's hard to get back on that horse. Like when I was traveling, I didn't get to go to the gym. I got back home and I'm like, oh, I lost the habit. And I love that kind of piece of advice of like, not only take the time away, but if you have to go somewhere, just keep the routine going. So when you're back and you have that time off, it's not like a shock to your system. Like, oh, I need to go do all this stuff that I normally would have to do. Right. So I want to go and talk about one more thing you mentioned in that, because there's so many topics now that I think when you get into these conversations, things come up that I didn't think of with the questions I had for you. But one of the things specifically was the thing when I've worked with you, a lot of it has been that set design and kind of creative direction behind all of the, that pink set we did at the All-Star game, or everything you do at NBA, or what you did with us last year at the finals. It was so cool for me to like work on that set, because I could tell like I could tell from the pitch deck you sent us and everything, like the concept, it was so cool to see it come to life. Can you give me a little background on like how you come up with it? Because you have a really good eye for detail. You're really good you have a really good sense of creative direction. And as someone who wants to be kind of like a creative director, producer in the future, like I really look at that and be like, how can I build off of that and learn from that? So give me a behind the scenes into your mind when you're developing like that look at All-Star Weekend for the NBA or the NHL or whatever. How do you come up with those ideas? Because I've seen you do it a ton of times.
Yeah, I mean, I will say a lot of it's our team, right? So it's a team game, but often, like at Fresh Tape, we have brainstorms, right? And a lot of that stuff happens in the brainstorm where we just drop, most of it's Pinterest, honestly. Like we're just all up on Pinterest and like looking at sets and looking at cool things. So honestly, that set I feel like was mostly like Ashley Gutierrez, who's one of our producers. Like she dropped this photo, which I can send to you, that like we were looking, it was like, you know, the client will give us a theme, first of all, right? So it's like Miami. It was like, wasn't in Miami, but they were looking for like a Miami vibe. So, you know, we're thinking like, what is Miami? And obviously like pink, Art Deco, like very like South Florida vibes.
Floral
there are palm
plants,
trees.
green,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then when you're looking on Pinterest and you kind of put those terms in, you get a bunch of inspiration. And so there's actually one set in particular, you know, I'll put together a deck of like with examples and like a mood board and that kind of thing. And then, you know, our client will be like, oh, we like this direction or this direction. So like they pick this one photo and it was honestly very similar because then when I find a fabricator, I kind of pass on the inspiration and be like, you know, but this is the sizing, you know, and that stuff, like the sizing and stuff, definitely more comes with experience. Like we learned that, you know, when we did 7-foot walls, like it would, if you pointed the camera up, you would have to be really tall and be at eye level with the athletes, which is hard to do if you're like one of us, because we're just regular people. And so it would often get the ceiling, you know, when we were inside, and we didn't like that. Like even at All-Star, right, we got the palm trees, and which actually looks super sick, but if you were in like some ugly conference room, it would not look sick. It would look like not good, you know? So we've learned that like 10 foot is like a really good, if we're able to do 10 feet is like a great thing. And if we have space on the other side, like 10 by 10 is like awesome. So the NBA All-Star, that portrait set, they notoriously need as small as they can. So we do like 6 by 6. It's like a tiny little corner, and we're taking photos, so it's a little different where you don't need to move too much. But like that kind of thing, like set size is something that comes with experience. But in terms of like the actual like, the look and feel, normally the theme comes from the client. We get on Pinterest and like just drop hella ideas, and then things kind of shape from there. So like for NBA All-Star, you know, they wanted something that was kind of a refracted, like ice looking look, and then, you know, we just dive in and are like, okay, like I literally look up like refracted, you know, and you find things you find on Amazon. Oh, here's this peel and stick something. There's for NBA draft, like a couple years in a row, we were building like our own sets, kind of like somebody would bring, you know, build a wall and then we'd put something on top of it. And I used this wedding website that I found, like it was like wedding stuff, and they had just amazing peel and stick stuff. And I was like, wow. So we'd get little samples, you know, and I'd take a photo like, oh, this is a cool looking, like, one of them, they're like backsplashes for a tub. Like, it's literally like stuff that isn't for sets, but like can totally be repurposed.
But that's the fun part of it. It's like you just get to take from different corners of the internet and
the internet.
Just make something. Yeah.
Yes. And then, on set, I mean, then, you know, you're talking about lighting. And so AJ, who is, you know, like our in-house, like go-to DP, you know, I'll kind of talk with him like, hey, this is what we want the vibe to look like. We want it to be kind of purple. We want it. So like for the NHL set, sticking with that, like I was like, you know, it's kind of going to be, I was like, I want it to be like really, it's outside, so it needs to have like really powerful light, because I don't know what like you were gonna do. So I was like, I don't know what, I think it's video though, so like we want to be able to outcompete the sun in Florida. And so he's like, well, you need I think they were 18s or M40s. He's like, you'll need those, you know, with 2 huge, you know, he kind of guided me through what I would need. So it's a team effort. It's like everything kind of, I get like inspiration or direction and stuff from, you know, the team. And then I'm just like, I'm in charge of communicating that to the fabricator, to the client, and then to be on site to make sure that it actually looks that way. And if it doesn't,
you're kind of overseeing everything and then going to make sure it actually happens the way you want it to. But it's an amalgamation of everyone pitching in and giving in their own thoughts and also their experiences. Okay, I love that.
And like Ashley will make mocks of it and she'll send it to me and I'm like, not quite like what I was thinking. Like, let's put, this here. We're working for WNBA right now on their draft set. And like, there's been a couple, I know WNBA pretty well. Like that's the other thing is like my job is knowing clients, so like I know what they want and what they like based on like last year and like just the vibe I've gotten from them. So like Ashley may make a mock that I was like, hey, can you make this? And then she gives it to me. I'm like, I think we need to add some different elements. I think we need some stuff here based on what I know from our client. And then, then we'll send it to the client, be like, what do you think? And then it just kind of gets passed around like that. So it's definitely a big team effort. But then, it's my job at the end of the day to make it actually look how it's supposed to look and problem solve if it doesn't look that way on set.
No, I love that. I think, I think that's a really big credit as to like you also being a very good producer is like giving credit to where credit is due and at giving everyone their flowers. And I love that it is much bigger than just one person. And that's what I love when I visited you guys in Denver when I was there for the finals, like getting to see how you guys all work together and it being such a like tight-knit family. How big's your team at Fresh Shape to give people listening an idea of like how many people you're working with there?
I think we're at 14 full-time right now, and we have like a few interns coming in this summer, like I think 3 or 4 interns this summer. So there'll be like, 18 bodies, but it's, I believe it's either 12, it might be 12. I should know this. It's either 12 or 14 full-timers.
Jared's going to be listening. He's like, I don't know how many people we have employed. What are you doing?
I know. And that includes like creative, production, ops, the whole motion graphics, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Love it. We're going to take a step back here, though, from obviously talking Fresh Ship, but that's like where you currently are. I want to take it way back here to the start of your creative journey. You are now, how old are you? 29. 29. I thought it was 29. So taking it way, way back here for a second to the start of your journey, where did you start off discovering this passion of yours to create, whether it's video, photo? I know obviously you were with San Diego in their athletic department, but did that start before that? Like when did you kind of realize like, oh, I love using a camera. I love creating visual content. When did that passion kind of start?
Yeah, I majored in communications and I was like fully set on doing PR because I was like, oh, I like to talk to people. So like that makes sense. And through my rowing career, I actually, I rowed. I rowed at San Diego, and that was basically where it started. We used to have all this like game film, right? But it was like gorgeous and on San Diego. I mean, it was like so pretty. And so I was like, wait, we should like make a movie out of this. And so I think in iMovie, because I think when I was a kid, a lot of people had like camcorders and kind of did
little point and shoot.
Yeah, like the little itty bitty whatever, like take your parents' camera and like play with it. So I'd done it before in iMovie, back in the day. But I definitely did not think that was my direction at all. And I just started making videos for my team and they like loved it to like a song. I'd like put all this music, like all these shots together to like a 3.5 minute song. And I was like, here you go.
You'd find a track you would never license these days, like a top 40 track. Oh, I can use this. I'm not going to get sued. And then you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And then I got a GoPro. And then I like really
as everyone
does. I know. And then I sent it like full send. I was like I would make at least one a year. And they actually did pretty well. They were like, I think in the rowing community, like it's not very documented because it's really hard to, unless you're in the boat, it's like really hard to capture rowing. So I was like in the boat, like I would like put it on my hat and I would like give it to the coxswain to like, and I would tell them, I'm like, okay, film us. I'm like, point the thing out this way, do this, and all my teammates, I'd be like, pass it around, guys. We'd like pass it down the boat. And so I had a ton of fun with that and actually like they did pretty well. I have it on my YouTube page. You can check it out in the rowing community just because like I think it was just excited to see like rowing stuff. And that was it. And I literally thought that was it. I was like, okay, cool, that was fun. And then that's how I got my internship is like the communications department because they would be like, can we use your videos? And I'm like, for sure, please use them, because they're like, great, rowing footage. And
we never have this. This is amazing.
Yeah. That's how I got the internship is they like saw my rowing videos and they're like, oh, you know how to do something, right? And I was like, yeah, I do know how to do something. And so I just did broadcasts, like we did stand-ups, like, where like the other intern would be like, today, the Toros are playing. So we just did broadcast stuff. Yeah, I did that for like 6 months maybe, and then I was like, this is kind of boring. And Clemson kind of started going crazy with their creative videos, and people started kind of putting it on Instagram, and I was like, I want to do like something cooler with like apertures. Like I didn't even know what aperture was, you know, but I was like, how do you make it like blurry behind and like not a view? Like that was my level of
how to
like,
make it cinematic.
yeah, literally. I was like, I don't know how to do it. I was shooting in 60 forever, and it like looked like that soap opera, and then through like
and then you realize 24 is like beautiful.
Yes,
and you're like, oh
yes,
my
and I'm
God.
like, wait, this is what I was trying to do. So it's just a lot of, and then just through that, I eventually got hired full time there, and they just kind of let me do whatever the heck I wanted to, and gave me like all access I ever wanted, and that's just how it went.
No, yeah, I think I personally relate to that, and I think like this would have been like what year for you? Like what time period would have been?
I graduated college in 2012, so it would have been 2012. No, oh my God, whoa. That was high school. Okay, graduated in 2016, and then I worked there until 2018.
So you would have been like that was so that for reference that would be kind of when I was getting into like I think that was my second year in university, and that's when I started getting into that sports creative thing. And very much similar, like I went to a sport media program here in Toronto, and it was much more broadcast based. Yes. But I also remember seeing Clemson and other teams like jack up the creative, and I think that was like part of like the sport creative like boom. People realizing like, oh, like we can use Twitter for more than just tweets. We can make sick content, and so I think that was kind of it's funny to hear that. Because I vividly remember the same thing. Like I didn't work for them, but we did broadcasting. And at first I'm like, this is cool, but it's not really what I want to do. And then I figured out how to use a camera. And then I saw what people are doing. I'm like, let me do this here. So it's just really cool to hear that like everyone was kind of influenced in the same time period. When you were doing there, what was like some of the highlights for you? Like what kind of content did you enjoy creating the most? What are like some of the experiences you have that you kind of think back on to this day? What was that? Give me some of that.
I think one of the things that I feel like was most rewarding is like at the end of each year, which I guess there were 3 ends of years, I think, because no, that's a lie, 2. Well, I just remember having this vision, like that at the end of the year banquet, right? Like you put everything together.
I know we did the same thing.
Yeah, and so I remember like what I wanted it to be. And like I remember the first year, like I just didn't have it, you know, like I was like, yeah, this is fine. I put this stuff together, but like I know what I want it to look like. I don't know how to do it, but like I know what I want it to be. And I think I left in March, you know, but one of the things I said to Jared was I was like, I need to finish this project that I have, because like I think everything clicked for me like after my first internship and when I got rehired. I was basically like, you guys need to buy a camera, because we were using, I think, my Canon 70D, and like it just, you know, so we got an A6500 and a couple lenses that went down to like 1.8, and I was like, fabulous. So I think, and I was figuring out S-Log and how to color grade and stuff, and I think it was like after that summer, it clicked, and it was like, then I just had a year. Like, I remember, you know, you look back and you're like, I'm embarrassed about that video. And then all of a sudden I stopped being in, like, a month out. I was like, I'm not so embarrassed about that. Like, I'll go back and watch it. It makes me feel good, you know? Or before I'd be like, every month out, I would learn so much in a month, and I would change so much of my style and my color and stuff that I was like, I can't even look at it. It's so embarrassing. And so I think that second year, like especially like the second half of that last year, like I feel like I was like, I got it, you know? Mm-hmm. And then I made that video that I still look back, I still watch it sometimes, and I'm like, oh, that was good. And I felt like the thing that I had in mind, that I wanted it to be like emotional, and I wanted, because I was a student athlete literally at that university. And so it was something, I remember there was a girl actually before me who did the internship, and she was really good. Like I remember as a student athlete watching the end of the year video and being like, oh, that was incredible, you know? And I wanted to make something that was like that, you know? And I feel like that
had that impact on people who,
and like capture the like student athlete, which is like, it was just so hard. Like those 4 years, that's also why like the routine and the whole thing is like very like, it's very ingrained in me, because like, you know, I went through that process and like kind of learned how to keep, you know, yourself calm and like not freak out and everything. And so that was just such an important experience for me, like in college, that like I wanted to capture it the way I felt it. So it was almost like when I was making that stuff, like I was vicariously, you know, like kind of super senior, you know, I was like, oh, like it's not me on camera, but like let me do for you what I wanted, you know, is kind of how I like attempted it. And
create the content you wanted someone to create of you.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's how I tackled everything, which is why it was so draining it was so draining because I was so emotionally like invested.
Yeah.
And like you said, like, grind. Like I just went to everything. I was supposed to be at everything always. And you know, as you know, you start making good things, and then people are like, we want more.
Yeah, like, and then like this team's like, why did they get this video and we don't? And you're like, okay, I'll be at your next game, and then it's just that cycle. Like I 100%.
Yes.
I relate a lot to it too, because like that end of your hype video was like my favorite video to make at the banquet every year. Like, and I like my first year I didn't do it because I was like new and whatever. Like I was, you know, getting like earning my place in that department. And then like ever since then I'm like, yeah, that video mine, no one's touching, because I loved, and I wasn't a student athlete, but I was so ingrained with the department and the athletes that like it was just like, these are people you become friends with. And I think that's what's really cool about working in college sports, and something I miss a lot is like you get to ingrain yourself with the athletes. They become like family to you, and then you get to kind of give them this fun little surprise at the end of the year. And like I still look back on it, I related to so much of what you just said. Like I remember at the start you're trying like a million different effects, every color grade is different, but then by the end of the year you got it. And it's just, and everyone looks at it, you know who did it. But like I love that because I remember doing those videos, and like those are still like probably some of my favorite videos to date are those end of year like athletic banquet videos. I love that story.
Me too. And I feel like, I mean, I used to shoot and edit and stuff. Like that was my first job at Fresh Tape, was to do like basically what I did for the university, but like you said, like now to do it for all the teams and all the clients we had. But I feel like I kind of like that video, like that end of year video, like I feel like was my baby, you know? And like my like I don't think, like you said, you can't get that kind of content or that kind of like emotion in the leagues and the teams and stuff, because you don't have the access.
Let alone
the
now,
guys
like
don't
access, yeah.
And the guys don't really care too. Like the people would, I mean, and I'm sure you know, like the athletes perform for you. Like they will give you, like some won't, but most, like they want to be on camera. They're in college. Like they're like, hell yeah, like I'm freaking famous, you know? Like they want to be in the center of attention. Like I could even catch the guys who would, you know, be too cool for school, but they'd always walk by me, you know, like in front of me. And I'm like, I see you. Don't act like you don't want to be on camera.
They'll give a little look to the camera, or but like I think that's the thing though, and for like working in college athletics, like they're still so young, and like they relish it versus like that's one of the things working in pro sports, like the guys in the NBA and the NHL, like they've been there, they've done it. Some of them don't like the camera, but I think that's what's really nice about college. Like there's like that innate, like they appreciate it, and I love that.
And they want to post it, and they want the texts I get every freaking day of like, can you send me that? I'm like, it's in Google Drive. I've already sent you the link. You know where the link is.
Do you have any photos of me? Yeah. They're all in there. If I didn't put it in there, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, but what about? I'm like, no, stop, no. But yeah, it was the best. Like college athletics is the best.
Is that probably the part you missed the most, or is there something else that you missed from that experience?
You know, I thought I really would. Like, I thought I would really, that was like really hard for me, and I don't miss it that much, because now I have my team. Like, before I was like a one-man band, especially.
Yeah.
And now I have Fresh Tape, I have like AJ and Ashley. It's not, and clients, like also clients are like now more my friends, you know? Where like Rebecca, you know, for the NHL, like when I see an email pop up from her in my inbox, I'm like, oh, yay, Rebecca, you know. I mean, it's still, again, it's like what are your priorities? And to me, it's my life. So it's like, as much as I miss that, like and I'm still friends with them, you know, I still follow them all on Instagram and stuff, and like they'll reach out to me every now and then and stuff. So I feel like I've had that, and I don't miss it, because I just don't miss the grind at all.
Because there's like, that's when you kind of get, like, I remember my fourth year, I was like working 3 different jobs, including that one, doing my thesis, and I'm like still shooting Saturday night men's basketball, and then there's women's basketball right after, and then like, oh, men's hockey plays like later that night. So it's like it's that grind. But I think you learn so much of yourself, and that's when you really fall like in love with it.
Yes.
Was there a particular moment when you were there that you were like, that you had like an epiphany of like, this is what I meant to do? Did you ever have that, or did that come down the line, or was that earlier?
I definitely had it there, that I was like, this is I'm now expressing myself. Like, I'm
Yes,
like, this is me,
exactly
like,
what I mean.
like and I think I remember like my dad saying something to me too, being like, I can see you in this. Like, I see like the way you put the audio, he's like, like from when you were a kid, like, he's like, I just see it, you know, for you. And I was like, I feel that, like, because I would really, really do, like, I really lean into the music, you know, for that, like, as we all do, you know, and that I felt like was cathartic, like, I mean, again, yeah, and when I was rowing, and, you know, I rowed competitively for, like, you know, 9 years, and all that kept me going, I mean, rowing is super monotonous and horrible and torture, and, like, literally the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, and the only thing that would get me through is music and, like, imagining shit in my head. Like, I would just be running, you know, you're, like, running and having to do some running tests, and I have my earphones in, and all I'm doing is, like, thinking of a move. I didn't even know I was really doing this, but, like, I was, like, imagining, you know, we all sit in the car, and you're like, I'm a music video, you know, but for me, it was, like, sports. Like, it was, like, me running to the beat, and I was like,
it's like romanticizing and like thinking of your life as you're the main character,
the
but
main
like
character
from the
vibe.
perspective, like, yeah, exactly.
And thinking like, how cool would this be if I used to watch Gatorade commercials too, because they're very also like beat and sweat and beat, and I would just like, that's what would get me to like when we're doing 2K tests, like I had 3 songs, and like they had to hit, and when they hit, I would hit them to the beat, and I would do these things, you know, and that's movie making, like the kind that I was doing. It was like, I'm literally getting the peak of this sport to a beat, and like that's, now I get to like do what I've always, maybe it's not me, I'm not the main character, but I can make somebody else the main character, you know, and make them like feel like, you know, that kind of vibe. So I feel like, yeah, it very much like, I think once I got the color grading and I started to like what I was seeing and like my stuff, I was like, yes, this is it. Like, I would like kind of like as I'm like, you know, editing, you're kind of like, you know, grooving to it, like feeling with it, and I just like feel, yeah, it's like cathartic. But so there wasn't like one moment, but I just feel like once I kind of
the entire process taught me like this is my calling kind of thing. Yeah. Before we move away from San Diego into the next step of your journey, what's a piece of advice you would give? And like there are so like, I think like the way we did it is the way a lot of people are finding out that about this industry and things you can do. What's one piece of advice you'd give to like either younger you or another young creative in their early 20s who's in that college grind and is really trying to figure it out in that sports creative athletic scene? What advice would you give them from your own experience?
One thing at least that really helped me that I think I was like self-conscious about a little bit is like posting your stuff. So like retweeting, like there's no, I think people think there's a, especially women, I think there's like, people think there's a fine line, or not a fine line. There's like no line between being like this full of yourself, look at my shit kind of
it's
posting.
It's a hard thing to get over for sure.
Yeah, and then like posting because like you need to post your stuff because people need to know your stuff, right? So I always like, one thing I did, which I think was super helpful for me, is like create a video account that like was separate so that I didn't feel like it was conflicting with like my personal stuff and like the stuff I wanted to post for my friends and like the kind of audience that I was trying to get a hold of, because I was trying to find a job, you know, like I was trying to get a job after San Diego. I knew that wasn't my end all be all. So if you don't think that where you're at is your end all be all, you have to be thinking about what people see of you, and like that means you have to post your stuff. Like a resume is not very helpful. Like I now, you know, I hire people all the time. So like I look at resumes all the time and it says nothing to me other than like, I mean, anybody who's touched Adobe, and then the experts will all have Adobe on their resume. So that doesn't say anything to me of like what you can actually do. So your stuff, and like, I look at like color grading, like if you have a profile, or like if you have, like obviously we have Gondola now, but like if your stuff matches, that's like something for me to see or whatever, right? So like I think you being like, posting your stuff and doing it tastefully is a skill. I think some people get it right, some people don't get it right. I'm sure I don't always get it right. Like you can post yourself, but a lot of what I see is like people posting themselves at the Super Bowl. And I'm like, okay, cool, love that for you, but also I don't know what you did. You know, it's like, I think posting your stuff, or like if you can't, because obviously there's limits, some people can't post their stuff. So like retweeting, like I would retweet all the time on like my San Diego stuff, just retweeting, quote retweeting, like being like, you know, tonight's game was
Put it on your story. You
know,
your
story. There's so many ways. Gondola. Yeah, you can reshare. And I think that's something that I felt self-conscious doing. I'm like, well, am I bragging? Like, what am I doing? Like, am I who am I?
I know what you mean.
You know, so, but I think that's really important to do, because that's what got me my job at Fresh Tape. Like, literally, I got a DM from Jared based on Twitter. Like, it was like based on one word of mouth, but it was from somebody who I didn't even know, who saw my stuff and recommended me. And then he just went and looked at my profile and was like, cool, yeah, it looks good. You know, it's like, that's what got me my literal job. So I think that's a big one, is just to like post your stuff and not be like timid about that, which maybe people aren't as much anymore. I mean, maybe that was just like back in the day when things were like first getting started, but
I mean, I relate to it. Like, I had my whole like, oh, I don't know if I should post my work. I made another account, and then like I'm like, I'll post it there. And then at the end of the day, I was just like, you know what, fuck it. I have no audience on this account. I'm just gonna put it on and then my account is now an amalgamation of like 99% my work, and then 1% is like my life. I'm like, oh, like I went on vacation, or this is my friends, or whatever. So like I 100% agree with you, and it's like that's the biggest thing. It's like when people are like, how do I get noticed? I'm like, are you posting your work? No. How the hell am I supposed to notice you? Right? So I fully agree. I would say that like posting your work is probably more important, and I'd love your take on this. More important than having like a reel, like a 1 to 2 minute.
Totally.
I love doing a reel as much as like a 1 to 3 minute like cinematic, like my best. But like I haven't made one, and I've gotten jobs, so I would like, you know, I think posting yourself is. You know what I mean? It's like I haven't had to. I don't have the time. But like, if you're interested, like, here's my website. Here's my Instagram, where I share literally everything under the sun. So like, I would love your take. It's probably more effective to just post your stuff than make a reel at this point.
Because a reel, I'm like, well, what skills that? It's a bunch of slow-mo clips most of the time put together. There's definitely a way to do a reel that you're like stand out, but it does take a lot of time. I was always intimidated by it. I never got around to doing it because it was like so looming and big, and like I was like, no, I just can't. You know,
it's anxiety inducing.
Yeah, it's anxiety, and I do think also people can get to know you through your like that's the other thing, is like having a personality through it, not just like posting your stuff and is like, here's this, but like if I went through your profile, like I would probably get a sense of like who you are, both from your work, the kinds of stuff you post, the captions you put, you know, like you get a sense of who somebody is, like reading their stuff, and like just the kinds of ways they promote themselves or not, or their team or whatever. And like I think that's just important to like have out there if you want to get hired. Like if you don't, then like you don't have to fuck with it. But I like if you are looking for a job the way like I was, like that was what got me hired, was like posting my stuff all the time. And I would also say, if you can't post your stuff, or even if you can, something that I think I found really, like, I didn't really put weight into it at the time, but I think was actually really important for me, was to like make stuff outside of sports. Like, I don't mean hired work. Like I just did videos of my friends. Like I would go home and I did like my family vacation, and I would try to like learn something new, try something different. Like that was my time to like try to experiment something else. So like I felt more confident. Like I'm like, okay, it's not just highlights and stuff like on the court that I can do. Like I can put together like a heartfelt something that maybe somebody else would like, you know? And like people would tell me all the time, like all my friends, and like they were like, are you doing a video this time? Or you're doing it? Because it meant something to them. And so I found more value than just like, oh, I'm like just a sports person. Like I found like confidence and like
and that also shows who
pride.
You are as a person too. And it shows like it's way more like intimate, and like if I'm an employer and I see that, I'm like, oh, she's actually like a human with a life, and she's like clearly got like a really good circle around her or whatever. And I love that. And I remember when I found your account and, you know, started like engage when I ended up meeting you, like before that, like some of my favorite videos that you made were just like those like little snippets of like your life. And I think that's like obviously so common now with like TikTok and daily vlogs. True. But like you did it in such like intimate is the only way, because it's like you kind of get a glimpse into your world, and I love that. And that's something that I think more creators, sports or not, should do, because there's a way to like, I always like to say, like, I like to document my life because there's more to me than just like going to sports games. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, going to the Stanley Cup Finals, really fucking cool. But like, I have really cool friends. I have a really cool, like, interesting life. So I love that kind of idea of like doing things outside of work that could also, you never know, might be hired for something like a lifestyle thing or something along those lines.
Totally. Like Jared, again, my CEO saw that. Because I think when he hired me for the first gig, he had just seen a video that I posted of like me and my family. And he was like, oh, I thought it was like a Toyota Corolla. I mean, it wasn't that good, but like I remember him saying something like he loved that. Like he didn't, like it wasn't the sport thing.
He loved the realness.
Yeah, like and so having like diversity on your profile and like doing something different, because also like nowadays everyone shoots sports. Like, it's just highlights. Like, I don't think it's that hard, and everybody has autofocus, and it's just like, it's not that
You need
crazy.
to find a way to stand out. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think like making stuff on your own, like, and again, it doesn't have to be for hire. Like, I think that was something that intimidated me too, is I'm like, I don't know how to freelance. I don't really have time to freelance or the interest in doing it, but I'm just going to make something that like I enjoy putting together. And like, I think doing that is a good practice just in your skill set, but also like diversifies your portfolio and might be your like favorite thing you've ever done. Like, you don't know, you know?
No, yeah, I love that. I'm going to pivot from that and kind of jump on one thing you mentioned here, just to keep the train moving along. You obviously just mentioned Jared found your profile and he's now your boss at Fresh Tape. So you finish San Diego, you did your whole thing at the athletic department. It's time to move on. You mentioned Jared found your videos and he obviously hired you. What was the transitional years like going from what you were doing at San Diego Athletics to now being, hired by Fresh Tape and joining this team?
It was really hard, honestly. I like cried every day that I was here for like 6 months. Like, literally every day I called my old coworker and I was like, this was a huge mistake. Not because of like the people were incredible and that was why I came. I was the third hire. So it was me, Jared, Max, and Alana. So there's just 4 of us. It was a new city. I didn't know anybody. So I came like really like bare fresh. And both of my coworkers had like significant others, and like Jared, is like older. Like, it was like really, really hard personally, like on my personal life, which I think, obviously it was the right choice, but like it was so freaking hard. And then also like skill set wise, like I remember coming in and I remember even Jared like had expectations of me that I was like, I don't know After Effects. Like, I've done it like twice in a very specific way, so I only know how to do this one specific thing, but like I don't know how to build an After Effects file, So there were a lot of like expectations of me that I was like, it was just very hard. And I think luckily like my team was so great that like Jared and I now have this like very candid, open relationship, because I was like, because he was like, I don't want to hear no's, and I'm like, okay, but like I can't do it. Like, it's not that I don't want to. Like, it's a yes, but I can't. So like, I don't know how to tell you I can't do it without saying no. But we like had to learn that. So I had to learn this new language, because at San Diego I was all by myself. Like, I had a manager and I had another coworker, but they didn't do the video. They were like more my mentors, but they weren't. I was kind of on my own in terms of gear and like editing and all that stuff, and all of a sudden I have like this, small team, but still more of a team and people who know more than me in my field of work. And then I'm working with contractor, and it's just a whole different lifestyle. So it was really hard to like fabrications. I was like, how would you even start? Like, what even would you do first? I have no idea how to, bring that to life. And we were a smaller company. We also did some stuff differently back then, but it was a really hard and like long and slow transition. And I honestly made like a ton of mistakes. And like, thank God Jared didn't fire me. But like, I made so many mistakes, and it was horrible and embarrassing. And like, that's challenge, right? It's like anything new, you're gonna like struggle and it's gonna be hard. And like you learn, my biggest thing was like, I just need to learn from every single one of those. Like, I just can't make the same mistake twice. Like, that's like not pressing record. We've all done that, but like I did it, and it's like on a client, and that's like big time. It's not like you're just like on your own at the San Diego men's basketball game and you forgot to press record on like one shot. It's like, no, this is like an interview. Like, you have to press record, just stuff like that. That was just like, yeah, it was hard, but it then made me grow to be like, how can I prevent that? Okay, so I need structures, and I need lists, and I need these things to help me not ever do that again. And I need a bag, that has an SD card holder, and I need a rolling bag that I take. Like, we didn't have any of those things. So it was very much like scrappy. And we have like a joke internally now, like we don't do things scrappy anymore. Like, we used to do it because it was out of like necessity, and we're like startup, and I thrived in that because I was scrappy at USD. So that translated, but like the level of like...
kind of like the run and gun mentality, making
Yes.
it work with what you have.
Yes.
Yeah, I got you.
And we still do that to some degree, but there's definitely less, like there's definitely things that we like, like we haven't done it before, and so we're gonna do it, and we're kind of learning on the job, which is like scary. And so it was just very hard because the stakes were a lot higher. I had people I wanted to impress, and when you make mistakes, it's more public than it was back when I was just learning, and nobody had any expectations of me. They're just like, wow, this is getting better and better every time. And I'm like, wow, how crazy. Where like I didn't really make mistakes because it was just learning. And
yeah, like they wouldn't have noticed because
yeah,
like,
it was internal.
It's their first time probably dealing with someone like you. And same thing with me at like when I was in university and working with her, like I could do no wrong. I was like, this is great. I'm like, and then later I look at the video, I'm like, what the fuck was I doing? Because it's like, again, it's a learning process for everybody. But now when you get into it, like with the NHL, it's like same thing now. It's like, oh, like I try my best not to make mistakes, but I think it's also you're human. You're going to make mistakes, right? Yeah. But it's really good to hear that like you obviously started with the companies that were new, so everyone was growing in the same sense of like at San Diego, like everyone was learning, and you guys had these discussions and learned how to work together and learned what was possible at the time and what wasn't. And I think that just shows that like you also are very honest and aware of your skill set and also but your ability to grow and learn, right? So it's all about that like learning process.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, is to know your capabilities. And like, I think people sometimes are like, no, never limit yourself. I'm like, hold on. Like sometimes you are not prepared. Like you should never go to a shoot you're not prepared for. Like you should say yes, and there's a certain amount of like, you know, they offered me the job and did I think I deserved it or was ready for it? No, but I said yes, right? So there's like some of that where you do have to step outside your comfort zone, but there's certain things that like, if you don't have the skill to do it, don't do it. Cause like, especially if you're getting paid, you know, there's that. So it was like, to me at least, I was like, I need to learn how to communicate what I can and can't do and like what I'm good at. Like there's things that I'm really good at. So like, let me do this. And that's honestly how I fell into like producing, is like, I don't really care about camera gear. Like I feel like I'm good at like capturing an event and like a moment, and I'm good at that, but it's not what I'm passionate about. And I'm not passionate as the cameras get bigger and heavier. Count me out. Like I'm not interested. Editing, I'm done. I just don't have any interest in that anymore. I think we talked about this at NHL, that like I now, like, all I want to do is, like, run the show. Because I feel like I'm really good at that. Like, I feel like I can, like...
oversight, making sure everyone's in the right place, everything's working, and then the show moves on.
Yeah, and I can have the hard conversations with the client if something's happening. I can have those hard budget conversations. Like, I can have those... The things I'm good at is, like, managing a team and, like, hiring that team and telling them, you know, what the expectations are. And, like, if they're not meeting the expectations, I feel like I'm pretty good at, like, communicating that nicely. Like... I feel like that's where I thrive. And so that's kind of how I moved into producing, is I was like, look, logistics and stuff, so my thing. Like, I will plan this trip and it will be let me just like go down here. And then, you know, it kind of fell into this. It was never like my trajectory. I think originally it should have been maybe like, I grow into a DP and cameras and stuff. And I just was like, I don't vibe with that. And so now I'm like, you know, I found the things and I communicated the things that like I liked. And when you like things, you're better at them. And the things you don't like, you're typically going to make more mistakes because you don't care as much or you don't like it and you're like, God, I don't like it. And obviously I'm still camera up sometimes. I still edit sometimes. I still do those things and it's like totally fine. But yeah, it's like very important, I think, to like communicate where you are trying to go and like lean into the things you're good at and like forget about the things you're not, you know?
A lot of what you said stood out to me, and I wish we could have so much more time because there's so many different topics about like diving in there. Like you said, like don't try new things on a shoot. Like I always say, like to my friends and like my coworkers, I'm like, I'm never gonna try out a new piece of gear on a shoot that I'm getting paid for or for work. Right. Because if you don't know how to use it, you're screwed. It's like
things you do know how to use even go wrong. So like you just gotta control.
So like I always say to people, like they're like, oh, like I might try this lens for this game. I'm like, have you used it before? Or I might try this camera. I'm like, have you used it before? No. Are you getting paid for this? No. Okay, then go ahead and do it. Yeah. But if you're getting paid for it, if it's a client gig and you've never used it before, like might not be the best time because you've never used it, and then you're gonna try it and you're like, doesn't work. And it's so much harder when you're getting paid, when there's client expectations, when your bosses have these expectations. It's a lot harder to take those gambles and take those risks. So I really like that. But I also, one of the things you just touched on, I can't remember how you ended that, but I mean, actually I remember the way you kind of identified your niche within your career, and you realized cameras, don't want to do it. Editing, don't want to do it. I think that's a really good thing to mention, because I think we all start like shooter, editor, like
everything.
My other job, we called them predators: producer, editor, like shooter. You're doing everything. And at first it's a lot of fun because it's so new. But then when you really start to get into it and you start to work on a bigger team, like for me, like I know I love shooting and editing, but for me, I love directing and coming up with a creative vision. Like that's what I like to do. So down the line, like I'm still going to shoot, I'm still going to edit, but I would much rather have that creative oversight over the direction of a project's taking. So I really relate to that. And I think that's an important thing for people to know. It's like, you don't have to be pigeonholed into being the camera person for the rest of your career. You took your role and you ran with it as a senior producer, and now you just got your promotion, and now and you get to do, you're still doing by proxy everything you like doing. You're creating something. It's just within a stance where you can have the control and the enjoyment that you want to have, and not burden yourself with the editing or whatever you don't like to do, right?
Totally.
Can you give me a week in the life, like a rough Monday to Friday as a Fresh Tape producer? Whether, we could do it whether you're traveling or maybe from Denver. Let's do one. You know what? You're staying in Denver for the week. You're not traveling. Give me a week in the life. What's Monday to Friday look for you?
Sure. Well, at Fresh Tape, we work remote or like work from home on Monday and Friday. So we go into the office Tuesday through Thursday. So Monday, I kind of, catching up on emails. I kind of like, my job, I like to say, is like poking people. Like I just like, hello, follow up. Here we are. Like we're getting
just checking in.
Yeah, checking in. We're like 2 weeks out from the event, so like need these answers. Just like lots of follow-ups. We use Asana, so like we have all of our projects and like their updates and their progress, and we do a project review on Tuesdays. So like by the end of the day today, I will like update all my projects of like where they're at. And then on Tuesday, that's kind of when things start moving, because I feel like that's when everybody responds to me. So we'll have our project review in the morning, and then all day, basically, I'm like emailing. If we're getting close to an event like WNBA, we're like sourcing props. I'm like talking to the fabricators, like, hey, are you good? Do you have what you need? Like, let's go over this really quick one more time. Like, it's a 10 by 10. Here's like, what is the floor you're using? Then we start getting into like details. So like check in on those clients. We've got the PBR series going on, so I'll check in with them and make sure that our editor, I'm kind of the between of our editor, right, that we contracted out, and our client. So I check in with the editor today, and I'm like, hey, when are you gonna have that trailer done? And he's like, okay, end of day. So then, tomorrow we'll be like, here's the trailer, and kind of keep that going. And same thing Wednesday and Thursday, it's kind of similar. It's just like it's a bunch of like, I think of it like kind of dominoes. I don't know if that's the right word, but like something's always going. Like it's like there's one, and then you're the machine turning the cogs. You're the engine making sure that. So I got to keep track of like where this project's at, like while this one is wrapping up, we're starting this one. So what stages are we in? I'm updating our Asana with like new information that comes in. I need to get contractors actually for that event, so I need to like start writing emails, texting the people that I like, like, hey, are you available? So that's kind of Monday or Tuesday through Thursday. We have like a team lunch every week on Thursday, and so we'll do like kind of a longer lunch one day. And then I have like meetings scattered within, like I'm talking to NHL on Wednesday, and new projects that come in, we have meetings with them. And then on Friday is another work from home day, so that's kind of like send all the emails that I need to before the weekend, like feel good, and that's where we're talking about work-life balance. Like I want to be not thinking about a thing over the weekend. So what does that mean I need to do? Like finish, like make sure there's
tying up all the loose ends.
Tying up everything I could possibly tie up, so that by the end of the day on Friday I'm like, boom, done. So it's a lot of emailing, and like some research but it's a lot of emailing, honestly.
How does that change when you have to go to like NBA All-Star at the end? Let's say, or like WNBA draft.
Yeah.
Like what does that change? You're traveling like Thursday. Like what's that gonna look like?
So it depends. We always travel out the day before. So like WNBA draft is on a Monday, so I'll travel out on Sunday or Saturday, set up on Sunday. So we'll have like a setup if we can. If we're so lucky that we have the space the day before, we'll set everything up. So we have 2 sets, I think, for that. So we'll set everything up. I'll schedule like lighting and all that stuff when that's going to get there, because it's in New York. So we have to get like delivery, because it's just crazy. We don't have a car. But some shoots will have a rental car, so we can kind of run errands that day. Like I'll go pick up gear. I'll go, make sure we're grabbing food and snacks and waters and stuff for the trip. And then, the draft is on Monday. So then, might have the morning off. Same thing again. Like if I have an evening, I'm not going to work all day. Like I will start at 2 and I will go until 10 p.m. or whatever the 8 hours is that again, sometimes it's longer. Sometimes I'll work 10 hours or whatever. But if I can like take the morning off and there's nothing I need to do, I'm going to take the morning off. I'm going to work out. I'm going to chill. Then I'll go to work at 2 o'clock and stay there until 2 a.m. or whatever time I need to be there. Mm-hmm. And then we just set up and like test everything. I mean, you've been there. Like we test and test and test until we feel like we're good. And then, the players all come and it's off to the races. And then we travel out. A lot of times we'll like load out that night and then travel out the next day and get back to work.
So I love how even in then you included the work-life balance. You're like, I'm not going to work until I have to work because and I think as you grow and as you mature in this like industry, you realize how important it is, especially when you like I just turned 25, but like I can feel my body taking a toll here. Like I literally like pulled my shoulder somehow last week, and it was probably because I've been on a flight like 2 or 4 days in the last month. So it's like you don't realize how much. So I love the fact that even when you're talking about when you're on the road, you're taking your time off and you're enjoying it. I think that's something that everyone needs to do at a certain point. What's been the coolest event or individual you've engaged with or memory during your time with Fresh Shape over the last 4 years you mentioned you're with?
Wow, what a hard question.
Let's do like coolest event or thing you've gotten to work. Let's do that.
Coolest event. Honestly, the WNBA draft last year was super sick. Like, I just, like, production-wise, like, the activations we had, and just, like, sometimes, like, you go to an event, and you have the super sick set, and then, like, players show up in sweatpants, and you're like, cool.
You're like, thanks, guys. This is exactly
or, like,
what we
even
did
in Miami, it was fucking hot outside. You know, it was outside, it was hot. So, like, this event, not only super cool sets, but everybody, like, came. I mean, the WNBA is just, like, insane. Like, they just came to impress. Like, everyone went there was like so dressed to the nines, like just like looking so fly. And like the place they were at, it was like this beautiful studio. It had this beautiful, I mean, just the whole thing, it made our set shine, you know, because it was like everybody was just like, who took a photo in front was just like looked incredible. The whole, you know, just the whole event was incredible. So it made our sets like even more incredible than, you know, it would be if you were just put in the stadium of a, you know, a sports stadium where like you have to squeeze in for media day or something. So I think that was honestly one of the cooler events. But I will say one of the best productions we've ever done. I think that my favorite production, we did the EA Madden GOAT trailer, where like we were teasing the GOATs, you know, of the season, which at that time it was Brady and Mahomes. And they literally were like, yeah, we want a barn. It needs to be in Arkansas, because this guy lives in Arkansas. And there need to be 2 GOATs who look the same in coloring and size, and like go. And we're like, oh, okay. So I literally had to find a barn, like a specific with the barn doors that open this certain way, you know, like a barn and goats. And I was like, in Arkansas, you know. So I literally found
That's like the whole, like when you work in sports, it's other duties as assigned.
Yes. And it was incredible. It was like, not only was it so fun, like I just felt really like I found the goats. Like I went on Craigslist and these people were selling the goats, and I was like, look, I'll pay you what you're selling them for a rental for the day if you can like come and just like babysit them. And they're like, are you kidding? They literally were like, is this a joke? And I'm like, no, I'm serious. And they're like, yes. And I was like, great. And so we had this like a bunch, and then I found this amazing couple on Instagram. I was like DMing farms in Arkansas, like literally like Google searching, and then I would DM them, be like, hey, do you have a barn that looks like this? Like, could we use it for a production shoot? And they'd be like, oh no, like we have all our chickens in there right now, but why don't you call these people? Like, why don't you call these people? And then we finally found this like adorable couple. They're like so cute and retired, and they're like, of course you can use our barn. Like, this sounds amazing. We show up, they had iced tea they're like, come inside, and they still like comment on like all of my Instagram photos, you know, they're like, we love you guys. They're like, this was the best day of our, like, just, it was incredible. And then the shoot was amazing, and the final product we're like really proud of, and like just was sick, and it was goats, and we held them, and it was really cute and fun. So that's my favorite production.
Yeah, because it just, I mean, that just kind of shows like the side of, like we talked about, like you get to go and meet really cool people, and then people you never thought you'd meet, and that's just kind of like the beautiful thing about our careers. Like you get to do all these things, and you get to play around with baby goats. But I think it's amazing that like you're working in sports, but one of your favorite stories has nothing to do with athletes. It's literally basically using Instagram as an Airbnb for a farm to use for a shoot, which is incredible. What's your favorite, like, has there been an individual, an athlete specifically that you've really enjoyed working with, and why?
Yes, Gabe Landeskog. He knows it too. He knows that he's our number
Gabe's
one.
Great.
We're his number one fan. Me and Gabby and Jared. We all love Gabe. I didn't know him actually before, because I wasn't a big hockey. I didn't know hockey because I was in San Diego and Seattle. So when I came here, like Jared's obsessed with hockey, and so is Gabby, and we got to shoot with him through Anheuser-Busch. Like he was their sponsor, or they sponsored him. So we're doing a shoot with him, and they're like, you're going to love him. You're going to love him. I'm like, okay, whatever. I've met a ton of athletes. They're all fine and nice, whatever. This man nicest man I've ever met in my entire life. Obviously, also beautiful. Also, just like literally the most. But he's like, it's just he's the most humble. He remembered everybody's name on set. He met everybody, down to the PAs. Like, I mean, literally, he met everybody, not one person. Like, he wasn't too good for anything. We did these silly TikToks with him. He was game for everything. It was a full day shoot. Half of it was at the ice rink. Half of it was at his home. He had just had his baby. He was like, hold on, let me hold my baby for a second. Like, it was just, he was so patient and lovely and just, and we worked with him 2 years in a row. And then obviously we work with the Avs, so we see him. But he knows our name. Like, he's like, he just remembers people. And that's so rare in the sports world. They just kind of brush you by, and I get it. They meet a lot of media people.
They have bigger and better things to take care of.
Whatever. Yeah, but he just is the best, and I'm sure he's like that with everybody. You can just see he's like that with everyone. Like, he just is wonderful, and so we love Gabe Landeskog for sure.
I remember when he came when I was working the media day, helping you guys out with the media day last year at finals.
Yeah.
Like, he came in and you guys were just talking like it was nothing. So I'm like, I love to hear that you guys, especially being the hometown guy, being in Denver, it's such so cool to have a relationship. Did you guys do anything for the Stanley Cup celebration? Did you guys get engaged? Because I know I obviously worked with you guys during the final, but did you guys get to do anything once they won?
We didn't. We offered to do a couple things, but I don't think we did anything. We went to the parade. It was a great time. But no, I don't think we did. We haven't done anything with the Stanley Cup after the media day and the arrivals and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
My next question for you is, who is a league or who is a team or an event that you'd want to work with? Whether it's yourself or with Fresh Shape, what's your next dream milestone? What is it? What do you want to work?
Well, it's not sports. I want to do, and I think a couple of us want to do fashion.
Okay.
So Vogue, I love all the stuff Vogue does. Obviously, they don't need us. But if we could be doing, producing the stuff that Vogue is doing, I would die. They do, amazing sets, too. At all the, Vanity Fair party, all that kind of stuff, at the Oscars and the SAGs and all those things. They always have, an incredible station. And we always, honestly, that's part of our Pinterest pin. I'm just always what about this? What about this? And a lot of it's from, the Vogue parties and events. So Vogue would be my dream, but again, they obviously don't need us because they're just crushing with whoever they have now. But
I mean, they don't know they need you. You guys, they don't know they need you guys.
Someday
yet.
I'm gonna get the in, and it's gonna be us. So
I mean, I think you guys are on the way. You guys did the magazine style. We did that magazine style shoot, and then we just did the glam ball, which you could argue you could take those and go to Vogue and be like, hey, we did this, So I think I think sports and fashion have a really cool intersection. I mean, you and I saw it, the guys,
GQ.
the GQ sports, the guys dressed up, there's definitely an intersection that it would apply for you guys. So there's no surprise for me if you guys ended up doing that at some point. Yeah. Now, down the line, let's say and this is your typical, what would you want to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
But let's say 10 years from now, where do you see yourself, or where do you want to see yourself? Is it with Fresh Shape? Is it on your own? What do you want to be, a creative director? Do you want to stay being a producer? What do you want? Where do you want to be in 10 years?
Well, I can definitely tell you where I don't want to be. I definitely do not ever want to freelance on my own, ever. I've never had. I laugh with her.
I'm also the same. I don't like
Ashley,
freelancing.
I do not have an entrepreneurial bone in my body. I want to work for the man, and I want to take my work-life balance from him. There's a lot of things you get from working from a company that you don't get as you freelance. So definitely not freelancing for me. And
that's really rare because everyone's I want to freelance. No. How do you freelance? I would love to freelance.
Ugh,
and it's just
don't do it.
I'm having a guest right after you that's going to say the exact opposite. So I'll be like, guys, if you want to freelance, don't listen to this episode.
If you need advice of if anybody tells you that working for the man or whatever is taking from you in some way, or that you could have more by not, first of all, you're not working for the right company, and second of all, you're not taking the right advantages, which Jared knows also that I am a huge proponent of all this stuff, but there is so much you get from working for somebody, working for the right person, working for a good person. You can have the world. Anyway, so not freelance. I definitely not creative direction. That's not my vibe. I'm definitely more of the producing, client relations. Honestly, what I'm doing now. I mean, I don't see myself leaving Fresh Tape or anything like that. I think location is a thing for me, and Jared knows this too, that LA or some place, Denver's not really my scene 100%. But I don't know where my scene is. I don't have this is where I want to be. So I'm kind of floating right now, but I think at some point I'm going to need a move. But I'm hoping that like, Fresh Tape, as we grow, we expand, satellite offices, that's kind of where my head's at, is that I'm just going to keep on this trajectory and see where it takes me.
Just going with the journey and seeing where it takes you. And I love that. Like, you kind of already know, like, this is what I want to do. It's just now figuring out, like, where do I want to move and where do I live? Where do I, like, eventually settle down, like, whatever, grow, have a family, whatever.
Totally.
And I love that you kind of have that in mind. Okay, so moving on now, the next part of the podcast, something I've been doing recently is I will just put something on my story and have people send in questions. We have a few.
Woohoo!
So I'll get your gauge on a few of them.
Okay.
So, I mean, one of them, you kind of answered two of them, but I'll probably get you to reiterate on one of them specifically. Someone asked you, what's the transition like from, going from university sports to working in a production company? We talked all about that, so we're going to go right through that. Yep. You talked a little bit about it, but maybe you can build on this. Someone asks, where do you get your set design inspiration from? And I know you said Pinterest, but maybe like elaborate more on like, from start to finish, like when you have these conversations, what are you looking up or what do you have people looking up for you when you're building these sets?
Yep. I think another thing too that we rely on is like just looking at other people's work, like nothing, we have this, there's no new ideas really in the world anymore. It's like you just start doing something you think you saw somewhere else. So a lot of our ideas come from that, is like, oh, I saw this person did this. Obviously we're not going to replicate, but how could we make that our own? And that's like other production companies, just teams. So like just following people in the creative world, especially like for me, like I have less interest on like the sports, like highlights following side. And I'm now more trying to follow like DPs or production companies that do stuff similar to us so I can get ideas. So that's definitely a big thing, is like I told you, like Vogue, right? Like I I just save everything that I see that I think is cool and then try to spin it for us somehow, So that's definitely, and then as you go, I think even finding things from your life, like when we're like creating a set, like, like I have plants here. So like I know that when I'm creating a set and I need props, like I kind of know what kind of like plants fill a room, like little things like that like, maybe I follow a lot of interior design places, like Scandinavian design is like something that I really like. I love IKEA, but Scandinavian design, like for Women of the League, when we were designing that set, I just like looked up Scandinavian design and then like pulled like little things from photos I saw on websites that like do Scandinavian design, stuff like that. So just like finding something and then going down that rabbit hole on Google is like,
amazing. This is actually not a question that's on here, but I actually wrote it down, and so I'll add it in this group of questions. This one's just for me. Your Instagram bio says less video, more film. You're really into the film photography world. I also, as someone who like really just enjoy film photography and kind of like that, I don't even know what to call, like that physical feeling that like, what is it with film that you like so much? And especially like being someone who used to do video and does video production now, what special connection do you have like to film photography?
So my dad did a ton of film when I was a kid. Like we have a billion photos of us as children because my dad just snapped and snapped and snapped. He had a Nikon F, which is now what I have. So I was actually like, I think must have been 3 years ago, I think, that I was like, hey, like, because I remember when I was younger, like he wouldn't let us use the cameras unless we put in the work to like understand how it works. We wouldn't ruin a film roll because it's expensive. And I remember back in the day, I was like, nah, I don't care. My sister was into it, and she like learned shutter speed and ISO and stuff, and I just didn't care. And then once now I was in the video world, and I know shutter speed, I got it, like all that stuff that I used to like, was daunting to me. So I was like, hey, do you have those film cameras? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, can I have them? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, cool. And then, I took it to like one shoot or something, and that was it. Like I took one, and a lot of them, so I print a lot of them out and I put them on like my wall. And they're just different, like Jared and I always laugh, like when I was first getting into it, he's like, you can take a digital photo and like put stuff on it to make it look like film. I'm like,
it's not the same.
It is not the same. It's like the skill behind it, right? Of the control you have over the shot, but also just when it's printed and when you get it, it just has more depth. I mean, like it just is, it's depth, it's rich, it's like, it's more, you only have 36, I mean, everything about it. We all know the things that are exciting about it. The like whole, I don't know what it looks like until I see it, and you have to be choosy, and you can't just shoot whatever you want, and you can only shoot in certain light, and like, is that gonna come out? Did I expose it right? The whole, you know, like unknownness, I think is super fun. And I recently now I have more of a point and shoot, which has none of that thought in it, just because it was really heavy to take my cameras like everywhere I went, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm a little burnt out on that. I think I'll get back into it again soon, but I still just love, I mean, just having, yeah, my little Yashica with me. I take it out to the bars, and I like take photos of my friends, because you see the iPhone photos, and then you see the film, and you're like, these are so much better. So
it's night and day.
It is, and like we always take behind the scenes photos of sets. Like that's, you know, what our Fresh Tape Instagram was for a long time, and I always was annoyed by the curation of our page, because, you know, sometimes I'm on set, so I have this camera. Sometimes we have contractors who send us BTS, and they have a different camera, and they have different edits, and they all look different. And I'm like, film is just, like, there's no
cohesive. You can't, yeah.
It's just that. And so I was like, you know what? I don't want to worry about editing photos anymore or whatever. So now I'm just going to do, film is going to be what I post. Like, if I want to post anything, it's going to be film, because I do care about what my page looks like. You know, like I said, it's like your resume. If somebody comes to your page, like, it should look how you are. Like, are you organized? Are you, you know, the thought process. So I was like, well, that's a really easy way. It's kind of a cheat. It's kind of cheating. I don't edit anything. So it's less of a time suck. More of a money suck, but less of a time suck.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I started shooting film like 2 years ago, and I'm like, this isn't cheap. That's why I got that Fuji camera, because it's like, it still doesn't replace though that feeling, like that raw feeling of shooting film, and like I love the fact that you still do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it's super fun, and our whole team is into it. Like AJ, who I was talking about, like our like DP, he's super into it. Like, I'm like kind of into it, you know, but again, I'm not a bells and whistles gal, so like I only want to know so much. He's like so into it. And then Ashley Gutierrez, our other producer, started a film lab. So we now have a film lab next door that she runs on the weekends, and so now it's like super easy. And she develops it in 24 hours, and it's like really good prices. And so she's really into it too. So we kind of all love to pull out our cameras. So it's kind of a group affair.
That's awesome. You are obviously not in the using the camera world in terms of video these days, but someone asked, and I think, you know, people talk about gear not mattering all the time, and I know it's not really your realm, but someone asked, what camera or equipment would you recommend to get as a beginner? Obviously, you started off with the Sony series, but like, you know, what would you recommend for someone gear-wise if they're just starting off or looking to start off?
Well, and I always said this, is like back in the day, I used an A6500, and I always got, like, people, you know, are always talking about gear, and like, you gotta have this and you gotta have that. And it's just like clothes, it's just like everything. It's like, yeah, you could have that, but you could have this. You know, there's like knockoffs, and then there's like vintage, and there's everything, right? But so the A6500, I mean, I freaking loved that camera. It was so easy to use. The A7 III was more beautiful, but like by a smidgen, honestly. Like, to the social media, like when you're talking social media too, right? It's like, it's gonna be posted on your little freaking screen, you know.
Compressed.
Yeah, compressed. Like, you don't need all the bells and whistles. And like, it had S-Log, and like it looked beautiful. I think it was great. And like, if you know how to use it, it's basically like knowing how to use your camera. And that was at a super low price point. You know, like I still would recommend, like, people ask me, like my sister was like, what should I get? And I was like, get an A6300. Like,
that's what I had, the A63, and I still have it. It still picks up when I need it.
And I have, personally, I got my first camera was an is the Canon 70D, which was fine, but I would probably recommend like the smaller mirrorless, because it's just easier and it has more color grading. You know, you can get more from it, and I think it's probably cheaper too, or somewhere around the same.
Yeah, especially being a couple years old now. Yeah.
And so now, I mean, now it depends obviously what level you want to be at, but like the Blackmagics are great, like a 4K. You know, I think they're so beautiful. There's definitely some weird stuff with them sometimes. But like Canon's, like the 5D Mark IV, I use that for like all the weddings. And now at this point, I don't know how much it is. I know it was expensive like back when I was looking, but it might be now cheaper now with the R5 out and everything. But honestly, yeah, like the A6500, I freaking love that camera. And it's, I don't know, as long as you have like 2 good lenses or 1 good lens, you know, like I had the 35, I had 2 prime lenses, that went down to like 1.4 and 1.8, and like that's
The
all.
35 Sigma, right?
Yep,
That's
35
one of them, isn't it?
Sigma.
Yeah,
That's
I had the same
It's
one.
amazing.
It was the best lens I've ever had. It was money.
Best. I mean, so it's like, it's not even about the camera so much. You just need something that like, with a good lens, I think you just need a good pair. But I would still recommend that. Like and again, it's really hard with budget of like what is expensive to you versus not, and if you want to invest, like that's a different thing.
It's an investment. Like, that's what it. You
yeah.
said it right. That's what it is. And people are like,
it is.
I made one TikTok and I'm like, the A6300 is what I would recommend. Someone's like, it's $900. I'm like, well, yeah, it's $900, but you can get something at $500, and it won't. I'm not going to recommend that to you because it's not going to get you anywhere. Like,
get a GoPro.
No,
like if you want to just
at that price,
get a GoPro. Like, and that'll be fine. It is 4K and shit. Like you can, but it is true. It's like,
but there's drawbacks, right? So no, but I love the idea that it's an investment for sure.
Yeah.
The next question is, what is it like working in a male-dominated industry as a woman, and what do you do to like not only stand out, but like cement your place amongst your peers being a female? And I think that's a really interesting question. That you're the second female I've had on the show, so I would love your take on that for sure. Being in a sports industry that is very obviously male-dominated and whatnot, I would love your take on that.
Yeah, I have many a feeling on this, and obviously, I've not had the experience of everybody. Everybody has a different experience. I have had nothing but relatively good experience. Like, no one has been, if anything, I feel like I get kind of better treatment because, like, I remember I was at NASCAR and people would, like, clear the way for me because it was, like, I was the only woman. And they're like, oh, move over, And I was like, thank you. Like, give it, like, other camera ops, And I was like, thanks. And so, and if there have been times that like you come across like a big personality, I guess I would call it, a big male personality. And I think the key, Rihanna said it best, right? You like have to fake confidence, you fake it. Like, so if somebody is, big leaguing you kind of like match them. Like and I think that's easier said than done, obviously. Like I think, I played sports and stuff. And so I think I've kind of had a certain way in the world that maybe not everybody has, but I've always been kind of like a very like candid and like no bullshit kind of person. So I think when I met with something that's like, and I have a twin brother, like, I don't know, when I met with challenges from men, it like makes me more angry than anything. So like I would just fire back kind of, which maybe is good or bad. But I just haven't really experienced that much. And again, if there's somebody is that way, I just ignore it and you just keep kind of kill them with kindness sort of thing. Like, okay, yeah, no problem. Like, let's just do this instead. And just coming into like, and this is the part that may be like controversial, but I just don't think about it. Like, I think it's easy to be like, oh, this is like, I'm walking into this room and there's a bunch of men, right? And you say that and then you psych yourself out and you're like, should I be here and stuff? But like, it's just not a thought that crosses my brain. Like, if I'm there, I'm there. Like, I'm here. So like, I'm just gonna do my job and then you earn your keep, right? So like, if you're soft-spoken and you're quiet, like, you're not gonna get the respect of somebody, especially if you're in a directing position, right? Like, these athletes come through and if you're like, okay, so it, like that kind of quietness, which I have experienced from like some women that I've like mentored before of like, you gotta kind of like
start projecting and being calm.
Yeah, you've got to like command the room. Like you have to command the room. You have to, but it's all like fake it till you make it. Like I remember my first shoots when I was shooting with like big league people, I was scared shitless. I was like, I don't, but you have to do it. Like you're in the position, you're like, I have, like LeBron comes on, of course I'm phased. I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm not gonna treat him any different than anybody else. Like you gotta kind of just like put it out of your head and like go forward, and people respect that. I think if you're just confident, at least seem confident, and like you command and you act like you're supposed to be there, nobody will question if you're supposed to be there.
You know your place. You know that you belong there. You're there to do your job. It's kind of like act like you've been there before because you have, right? And I think you've earned your keep and earned that respect now.
Totally. And I think if you just walk in that way, and I've seen this in other women too, who like I've worked with, is like I know immediately those women who are like, I'm here, like they're there, they're there, they're in it, they're engaged, they're present, they're not thinking about what do people think of, what does this look like or what, it's just they're there and they feel like they should be there, and like I mean, that's what men do, right? Like, that's what I always say is like, men are always like, I've had so many like, mentees like be like, should I apply for this? Do you think I could get it? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, you're underqualified for that. Like, of course you could get that. Or we've always talked about how men who apply, I'm like, I get these resumes. I'm like, what? You don't even have any experience in this position, but they apply anyway. You know, where like women, constantly underqualify themselves. And it's just a confidence thing. It's just like, you have to just like fake it till you make it and like believe you can do it. And then like, if you believe, people say, is mind over matter, right? Or is that the right? There's a saying, right, that it's like, if you believe you can do it, you're going to do it, right? But if you don't believe you're going to do it, you'll never do it. So it's that same thing, is you just have to like kind of not think about it like that.
Yeah. No, I love that answer, and I think it's very different from other answers I've gotten. It's like, you're just kind of like, just be there. You're there already. Don't psych yourself out about something that might not even bother you. I love that. The last thing I'll say is, if you come across somebody who treats you differently, fuck them. You know, like I'm like, well, fuck you. Okay, cool. Like, I'm going to kill you with kindness, you know, and like, that's how we approach it. We've definitely gotten emails from like men who like will direct the question to like a male in the email, you know, when it's like our client or our project. And you're like, anyway, so, you know, I'm responding to this, you know, and you don't say anything, but you kill them with kindness, and you just like, then do a great job, and like, you just move forward. Be
and, like,
better, yeah.
Yeah, you just be a boss, and then they're gonna be like, oh, okay, oh yeah, oh, Jared's not even coming to this event? Oh, it's just you? Oh, okay, and then it's amazing, and then you're like, yes, you know, and you just do it. You do it, and you forget about it.
I am the one who does it. Yeah. Love that. Last question here, and this is a very direct question by someone. How does one get a job working for somewhere like Fresh Tape? What's the process like?
Well, you can apply. We do have positions open all the time, and things are always changing and growing, specifically at Fresh Tape. And just check the website. I mean, I think sometimes we post, so like follow them, and most of our competitors too are places that are like Fresh Tape, post on their stories more so than they're not going to post in their feed, because we have it like curated whatever, but like we'll post on your story like hiring, job open, and you just have to apply, you know, and maybe you'll get an interview, and like if you're qualified, you will.
Just like any other job.
Just like any other job, just apply, you know, and it never hurts to hit up somebody who like find out who the hiring person is, or who. And oftentimes we're wrong, you know, but we're always going to be in Slack and be like, hey, Alana, did you get, you know, I got this message from somebody, I think it's for your job, like here's their message or whatever. And just be an engaged applicant, you know, like we sometimes get applicants who like apply but aren't really serious, you know, about it. So like if you're engaged and you want it, like we're going to see that, and we want people who want to work for us, you know, not just want a job, but like someone who wants. These small companies want people who are passionate about the company and passionate about the work, you know, because we need that, because we're small and we are still a little bit scrappy. So you need to have like, it can't just be like, I like this one camera. It's like, no, you have to like the whole package, you know?
You have to be in.
Yes, you have to be in, because it's small. It's still a small team, you know, we're very like close knit. We're super tight. All of us are like very, you know, we bicker and we, you know, do the whole thing like siblings, you know, kind of. Yeah, but you just have to like want it. And then if you want it and you pursue it, who knows? You could get it.
That's a great. I will also, for everyone listening and watching, I will leave all the links to Fresh Tape's Instagrams and everything like that, and the paid links for you guys to check out. Moving on to kind of wrap things up, this is something I ask everybody during the podcast is and I kind of asked you this already for the college side of things, but like, what's a piece of advice you would give to younger creatives in the sports world who are just starting off? If you could, what is the number one piece of advice you'd give like 20-year-old Avalon before she started this? What would you tell her today?
I would say something along like the grind is important, you know, and to wear all the hats is important, because then you will find the thing that you like the most of those hats and things, and every single piece of the whole process will help you. So like there's no job that's too little for you to do or too tedious or anything like all those, like editing a conference call or something is not too little. You know, like the things that aren't glamorous are still important. And so to grind and like to get that experience, like that's the way you'll learn. And doing all of the things, like literally all of the things and not like being appreciative of that rather than being like, God, here's this other responsibility that's not under my job title that somebody's having me do. Like instead, like take it and like learn from it, because the worst thing that will happen, or the best thing I guess that will happen, is you find out you hate it, and then you know you never want to do that. And it just helps you find out what you really want to do by doing all the things you don't want to do, which
it's like process of elimination.
It is, and you have to do them all. So you have to do all the horrible things, and then along the way you'll find all the great things too. But you do have to do all the things to figure out what those things, what the ultimate thing will be that you will do.
Perfect. I love that. Continuing the wrap up here, what's next for you? Where are we going to see you in the next little while? You got WNBA draft. What do you have coming up that you're going to be doing? Let's give the viewers an idea.
WNBA draft, yes, in April. And then I think sometime in April too, we're shooting the last one of the PBR Cowgirl series, which I'm super excited about. And they'll be start dropping every month starting this month, so you can see them. I'm sure we'll promote them too. And then we have the NFL draft at the end of April. So that will be the next, that's the next month calendar, I think. Yeah.
Where can the people find you on social media? Where can they follow you? I can tell them, but where can the people find you?
I'm at that video gal everywhere.
I love that handle. How did you get that? Because I feel like that's such a cool handle. And
yeah.
One of my friends, Nicole, she's like, I love her handle, and I wish I thought of that.
Yeah.
So how did you think of that? 'Cause
it's so funny. I was in group chat with my family because I remember I was like, I don't want to have this person, because people, all the athletes started following my personal page, and I was like, nah, no, this is like, you guys are like 18, no. This is for my friends. And so I was like, I need a page. And I was like, I want kind of a brand. Like I kind of want a thing, you know? And I remember I think it was, in this group text with my family. And I think we were kind of going back and forth. Like my mom was like, something video, girl, something. And I was like, oh, like we just kind of like pieced it together. And then at the end, it was like that video gal. But I think,
awesome.
I should find it because, it was my family, like helped me kind of shape it into.
And that's the brand. And that's who you are now.
That's it.
That's the brand. I love it. Anything you want to add? Any last words you want to add to this? You're good? Yep.
I don't think so. Great job. Sorry for the battery shit.
No, it's all good. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you. For everyone watching, thank you guys for listening. You guys can find all of Avalon's tags and pages. Go follow her. She's incredible. Thank you so much for being on the show, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. See ya.